Welcome to Theater Therapy, a podcast for movie lovers who treat going to the movie theater like a therapy session. With co-hosts Allie and Ems, we geek out and dive deep into all things movies, including top picks, movie reviews, best soundtracks, our current hyperfixations, and more. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy today's session. Welcome back to Theater Therapy. Today's session is about Ghostbusters.
Woohoo!
Finally! But before we get into that, we just wanted to remind you about the movies of the month.
Yes.
We're doing Hocus Pocus and Scream. You still have a couple weeks to watch it before Halloween is over. And then you can review it on our Google form or chat in the Facebook group about it.
Yep.
And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a spoiler-riddled episode. We just decided there's not really much we can talk about it without spoilers.
If you don't know what Ghostbusters is about,
then that's on you.
I mean, it's Ghostbusters. What do you expect?
It's just one of the most famous comedies of all time, apparently, according to Google.
Really?
I disagree. Okay, honestly, I just watched the first one for the second time, and I think it was a terrible movie.
I do think that when it comes to movies like that, I mean, when did it come out? What, in the 80s? 90s?
I think it was
Actually, it might have been even, was it the 70s?
I think it was 84.
84.
Yep.
So, okay, I feel like every movie that came out in the 80s is, one of the best of all time. I don't know why.
I don't know, they just become
they all get
instant
that rep.
classics. Okay, and here's the thing.
Some of them are, some of them deserve the title, but a lot of them are this is such a good movie, and they're all trash.
But it's 80s trash. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
it's
they're just so, yeah. It was just a very generic 80s type movie. I have so many issues with it.
80s camp goes so hard in so many movies.
But I guess before we get way crazy into it, we'll explain our outfits of the day.
Oh yeah. So, in case you haven't picked up on the many, many, many times we've discussed one of our favorite movies ever is the Ghostbusters 2016 version with the females that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So we dressed up as Abby and Aaron.
I'm Abby.
And I'm Aaron. In their Ghosts, They're Real presentation that they do.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie, or if you have, we're just basically in black long sleeve shirts. Emily's got the Aaron vibes going with her hair and the jeans. And then I have glasses, my hair up in a bun, just like Abby. And I also have a little bit of representation for Kevin, and I have no lenses in my glasses.
Oh my gosh, that's just amazing. If you guys have seen the movie, you'll appreciate the humor that is behind these outfits, because it's so good. And maybe we are just biased because we watched the 2016 version first. When it came out, we were on a trip somewhere, and our dad, by the time it hit or whatever, our dad had a copy of it, and we were watching it in the hotel. Or maybe it was on TV. I don't know. We watched it at a hotel. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And 2016, then how old were you? I would have been 14, so you would have been 17.
Yeah, it was my sophomore year of high school.
And we just thought it was so funny.
Not sophomore, junior. Sorry, jeez.
We just found it so entertaining. I don't know.
Part of it is that was a very core memory for us, because it was we're in this hotel, it's late at night, we've just spent the day with the fam doing all this fun stuff, and then we're exhausted. We were just in Utah for I think some sort of
I don't know,
shopping.
We must have been
I think
swear
it was
we had the giggles or something, because we thought it was so funny.
Well, I mean, again, it was later at night. We've been busy all day running around doing stuff, so then we were just laughing our butts off at this movie. Mm-hmm. So that just makes it, even more nostalgic. But then, since then, though, we've seen it, I don't even know how many times.
At least over 100 times.
Easy. At least.
Because here's the thing. We watched it that one time, and then I don't remember, over how many months, but I swear we watched it at least, once a week.
Yeah.
And because we would sit on the floor of our basement, and we'd eat popcorn and watch a movie and laugh our heads off.
Again and again and again.
Again and again. And then every year since then, I watch it at least once a year.
Oh, I would say I watch it at least 4 times a year.
I always watch it around Halloween, for sure.
For sure. But I'll, randomly be, in a mood for a comedy. Yeah. And even though it's a Halloween-ish movie, I still will watch that one. And the other thing is that we became obsessed with what we're dressed up as today. Their little ghost presentation.
Ghosts, they're real. and a valid science. Oh my gosh, like it's just peak humor. And then with Patty and Holtzman, the other characters in the movie, we quote it
this
so
one
much too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a
baby. If I knew what it was, I wouldn't say
we're sparking thing. Oh, Patty
I love
is
Patty.
my favorite.
Patty is
okay. So for those of you who haven't seen it, the 4 main actresses are all actresses that have been on SNL. So that makes it 10 times funnier in my opinion because they're really good at comedy. And like I honestly feel like probably at least half of this movie was just them doing whatever they wanted.
Oh yeah.
Because like their chemistry and like their quickness with each other, like the little like I'm like you can't really script a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Or if you do, like the actors have to be really good at doing it. But most of them they just be like, okay, just do it.
Right. And I'm sure they had like different versions of lines that they were coming up with to try and things like that. I don't know. It's so funny. And there's even one little clip in there and I'm like, that was not scripted. That I can just tell from watching it so many times. But you know when they see Erin's boyfriend, he comes up to her and they're doing the dance. I was
thinking the same scene. I was like, if she says the dancing
she's like,
scene.
When she says, oh, he takes off that V-neck, there's another one under it. And then they both start laughing. And I'm like, that was totally
he takes off that, so there's another one underneath. And Patty loses it. And I'm like, I know for a fact that Leslie Jones was just her laughing.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if you see, like, her reaction to Patty laughing, she's just like...
like, that was good.
Yeah.
I know. I thought that when I watched it a couple weeks ago. I made our cousin watch it with me because she'd never seen it before. And when we were watching that, I literally thought something like that has got to be a non-scripted moment because it is just so...
Like, you know, they were just kind of, like, spitballing it, and then she took it one step farther, and it was, like, so funny.
Hilarious.
So, yeah. That's, like... my golden comedy movie.
If you want to laugh, you watch that movie.
It's one of the few movies that will make me actually laugh out loud no matter how many times I watch it.
Allie doesn't laugh out loud very easily, though, to be honest. No. I do. I'm a vocal response person when it comes to, like, watching movies and like that. Like, yeah. If you saw the video I made when I watched Friday the 13th, I, like, squeal and, like, make noise, like, ooh, like, I talk to the characters on TV, and I laugh out loud very easily. Allie doesn't. It actually takes a lot for her to be like, wow. I
either have to be like pretty loopy and out of it and like tired while I'm watching it, and then I'll react way more often, or it has to just be
I will say that's probably why you're my favorite person to watch movies with, because you keep your mouth shut. Because what's funny, as annoying as and hypocritical as it is, I'm a vocal person when it comes to watching movies, but if somebody else is talking, I'm like, shut up, don't talk, and so it works great. So yeah, because
I just am like pretty much just like,
and then I can have my like stuff, and it's good.
But I will say it's fun to watch with you, because then your reactions will sometimes make me react.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I'm just like, yeah, whatever, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that was actually really good, and then you're hilarious.
Rarely do you laugh out loud, and Ghostbusters is 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, literally, I just watched it last night for my probably, like, 1 millionth time, and I was still laughing. Like, laughing my head off.
I mean, it's been 7 years since this came out, and I probably seriously have watched it so many times, and I laugh without fail every single time.
Every time, yep.
And I find new stuff to laugh every time, too. Like, I notice more and more, and I love it. Love it so much.
So, yeah,
as you can tell, we're biased about this
basically, this episode is pretty much just our love letter to the 2016 version of Ghostbusters.
Because here's the thing. When we watched that one, then we were talking to our dad and our brother-in-law about, because they're fellow movie buffs that we talk movies about all the time, and we were saying how much we loved that one, and they were both like, no, that one's not good, you need to watch the original one that came out in the 80s, and we're like, well, we've never seen it, blah, 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 because in the new one, there's a couple, like, obviously nods to the original.
Right, and you do have a couple of the original characters.
Like, Patty's uncle, he's in the original one, Bill Murray.
They don't play themselves, they don't play the same character, but they kind of are, like, you know.
And so we're like, okay, fine, we'll watch it. And we watched it, I don't know when.
I can't remember.
It was a few years ago, though. I haven't watched it since because, like I said, it's...
No, we watched it right before the newest one came out. The Ghostbusters Afterlife.
So it was only like 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, it was boring.
Because we were going to watch them all and then go to the new one, and then we never did.
Oh, yeah. Which I still have never seen the new one. I was going to watch it, but I was too tired, so I didn't.
I did watch them all. But yeah, no, the first one...
Like, it was fun. It was very 80s. It was, like, you know, whatever. And I'm sure, like, when it came out, it was, like, ahead of its time because it had, like, special effects that were ghosts and things like that. And the technology, I guess, would have seemed really cool
Yeah,
But
I know. I was like, when I was watching them, so I watched all of the Ghostbusters movies this week in prep for today, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to get all up in arms about how crappy the CGI is. I'm like, I get it. This is an old movie. I'm just gonna let it be what it
for
was.
what it came out when at the time.
But it was pretty bad. It's so funny to watch. I'm like,
but like in the time that it came
right,
out,
then
that would have been really cool.
It would have been like super cool and super great. So I'm like, okay.
Because I will say, where we're at now with technology, I'm way more numb to CGI and special effects.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I appreciate things differently. I will say, it's like, I have to remind myself if I'm watching a movie and I'm like, okay, this isn't real. Like, they made this computer generated, which is impressive. And so I feel like watching old movies, I have to be like, okay, this was really impressive for the time because it was like brand new stuff.
Right.
And stuff. Because beforehand, they would just do like special effects and like things like that. But when they started adding CGI in, that's when movies started becoming bigger scale. And so I feel like that's one of those movies that, like, okay, they use CGI. Right. You have to appreciate it for where it's at. Because even though it came out in 1984, and compared to nowadays in 2023, like 40 years later, right? I don't know. I can't do math. Long time later, it's very different. But, I mean, it was good for the time.
Yeah. But it was pretty funny watching it now and being like, man, the CGI. I really wanted to like the original because I do have a thing about original movies.
I know.
You gotta respect the originals, you know. But there was so many problems I had with the original.
Here's the thing. When it comes to originals and remakes or like series and sequels and reboots, all that stuff, yeah, you have to have some respect for the original, but also you have to let new ones become what they can by themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, like, yeah, it was great by itself, but, like, in my respective opinion, 2016 version was way funnier. Like,
it was.
Way funnier.
I didn't laugh in the first one at all.
And maybe they weren't trying to make it funny, but I feel like they were.
The first one?
Yeah.
The first one was a revered comedy.
See, and, like, maybe just humor's changed? I don't know.
Yeah, and the humor was very different. The humor in that one is very 1984 type humor. There was a lot of like misogynistic type jokes.
See, I don't really find those funny.
Me either. There's just a lot of things that just made me uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, why did people find this funny? There's literally a scene where one of the Ghostbusters, and they're like all sleeping in the same room on like different little cots. And one of the Ghostbusters has a lady ghost appear above him, and then she like gets him off.
She in the first one?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Are you sure?
Yes, dude. The gas, I gasped. I was like, wait, what are they implying?
What's going on?
Because no, like it's literally like she appears above him and then she like kind of like fades down and then he like has this reaction to it.
See, that's just not
funny. And like
funny.
I'm pretty sure you even see his like belt buckle like come undone or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
That's not really funny.
No. I was like,
that's just weird.
And it just was like things like that I'm like, okay, maybe this was funny back in its time. It just hasn't aged well.
Well, I think too, because like actually we were talking about this yesterday because we were talking about this feeds into movie stuff. I feel like that we were talking about generational gaps and like things that happen.
Oh yeah.
That kind of divides like humor between different age groups, and I feel like the same thing happens with movies where like in context of what's going on in the world during certain time periods, it bleeds into media, right? Obviously. Mm-hmm. And so, like, in the 80s and 84, I'm sure that was probably peak humor. Like, it's probably, like,
oh, yeah,
very funny because they were still leaning into all sorts of things. But, like, nowadays, that's not funny. As funny. Like, it just doesn't hit the same. And, you know, they take things into different contexts. And so I feel like that's why when the 2016 version came out, and it was, like, different type of humor.
Yeah.
And it fit very well into 2016 era.
Mm-hmm.
Why it was so much more funny. Maybe that's why it was. Maybe in the 80s when it came out, it was hilarious and everybody thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't get it, I guess.
It doesn't age well now.
No.
And like, I don't know. I feel like...
And I hate to get into politics of movies, stuff like that, like things that don't age well. But there really is trends, though. Like,
yeah.
There are things that don't age well when it comes to movies and media and all that stuff. And you can tell because, like, for sure, some of the things that came out in, like, the 80s and 90s that were huge, You can't make even in the early 2000s, you can't make the same jokes. And here's the thing, and I hate to lean into like common mainstream stuff because I don't want to always appear, agree with the general masses, but there are some things that I'm like, yeah, we probably shouldn't make those anymore.
Like, can't you come up with something that's new and actually funny?
I mean, I'm sure there's some jokes in there that I've missed in the 2016 version of Ghostbusters that probably did fly over my head. That if I was to really listen to them now, I might be like, oh, that's a little inappropriate. But I feel like for the most part, they weren't leaning too stereotypical into one direction.
Yeah.
Some of them poked obviously.
Right. There's like still some ones that,
since it's
some
all females,
people...
obviously you get jokes. I mean, one of the prefaces of the movie is that they're female scientists, and they're all like, you guys don't know what you're doing, kind of.
Right.
And so, obviously, that in and of itself kind of,
Well, that's something I kind of wanted to touch on, though. Well, in some of the different similarities. I literally took notes while I was watching the first Ghostbusters to kind of see where, they took from the original, how they kind of played off each other, what the Ghostbusters 2016 did right versus what Ghostbusters original did wrong. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I found so interesting is that Bill Murray's character, he's like a professor of sorts at the beginning of the movie, and he's doing this test on these two students, and he's like being kind of mean to the boy and zapping him even though he guessed a couple right. Like, they're trying to show that they're psychic or something, and so they're guessing what's on the other side of his card. He never lets the boy get anything right, so he keeps giving him electric shock. And then there's like a girl student that he's like acting really flirty towards, and she's guessing and he's saying everything's right even though it's wrong. The other guy leaves, the student, and then he's like making a move on the girl, and it's just so weird because I'm like, okay, he's a professor, he's probably younger and she's probably older, but like it was so weird and so cringy, and I just like, I don't like this. Like, this is just so
here's the thing.
Uncomfortable. But then you have a mimic of that in 2016 in a way, because Aaron kind of is like, oh, Kevin's really cute, and like, and like she makes a couple little inappropriate things, and you could argue that like she's his boss, and there's
about that because she's a professor and she's like,
right, I think she's Bill Murray, like in the new one.
Yeah,
that's who she's supposed to be portraying a bit. They have similar energy in a sense, but with Bill Murray's character in the original Ghostbusters, he's constantly like making moves on women and kind of manipulating them in different ways.
He have like a hyperfixation on Sigourney Weaver's character, kind of?
Yeah.
Doesn't he love her?
And he's like, oh, I'll go check her out. And he's like, oh, I mean her apartment out. And then like, just like really weird energy the whole time. He kind of comes off as like a skis ball, like he's using his status and whatever to manipulate women.
In the 80s though, that was a very common character trope.
Well, and he became the most beloved character of the Ghostbusters
franchise.
He was the favorite Ghostbuster. Everybody loved his character, thought he was a great character. I hated him by the end of that movie. I'm like, I have never been so annoyed by a character before in a movie. Like, if I had to choose a character I hate the most out of any character I've ever seen, besides Jeffrey from Game of Thrones, it would be him. Like, I was just like, I cannot believe that. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get that that's kind of the jokes and whatever, and you can have these kind of skis-bally characters. I've seen it done before, but I've seen it done better. And I'm like, they just would not let one moment pass without him having some sort of inappropriate...
See, and it was because that was the humor at the time. That was, like, the jokes and stuff. I mean, if you watch, like, honestly, even if you rewatch, like, Footloose, the amount of, like... any movie like that came out in that time period, that's just, I don't know why, that's just the way it was. Obviously, nowadays, people have spoken up more about things like that, and so now it happens a lot less, or if it does happen, then it gets called out a lot more.
Right. Or it's
they use it and they try to...
noted.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the 2016 version, you do have Aaron kind of, like, being a little, like, flirty towards Kevin. And make a couple, like, jokes about it.
He's not as young.
No, their age is way closer, it seems like, because...
It's funny because they made him, like, a typical dumb blonde.
Right. And so, well, that, and then Erin also, hers doesn't come off as okay, so Bill Murray, he comes off as like he knows what he's doing. He's trying to manipulate the women. He's using all of the stuff in his repertoire to do it. But Erin's just like
She's,
comes
like,
off more as like a
awkward
nerd,
and
an
like
awkward
very uncomfortable
nerd,
and just like doesn't understand that her
right?
comments
And
are
that
being,
doesn't like excuse some of her comments.
no,
Obviously, but it's also interesting because
different context. Though.
Abby will call her on it too.
Call her out, be like,
she's
"Gosh."
like, you can't say that, you're a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah,
and
like,
so it makes
literally.
it funnier in a way. It's more like nuanced or whatever, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, like that wasn't
Well,
good.
and I think too, they did that probably because for one, in the original one, Bill Murray's character was like that, and in reality, that actually happens a lot more in,
Yeah.
The dumb blonde will always get hit on by, the pretty dumb blonde will always get hit on by, like, a superior. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Well, and
I
just
think
any woman gets hit on by any skis ball guy or whatever.
and so they're making it more like, this is actually what happens. And look, it can happen in reverse, too.
Yeah.
And
So I just think they handled that type of jokes better, and it was also more limited. There's a few times where she'll, like, throughout the movie, she's, kind of trying to get with Kevin, but then she kind of moves on to it by the end. Bill Murray never changes. He's the same in every single freaking movie. The guys never really call him on it, and if anything, they kind of like, good on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was encouraged behavior back then.
So, that was one thing that I was like, I hate to be that person, but come on,
Yeah. What was the other one like, the Afterlife one? I haven't watched that one. With Paul Rudd.
Okay, so...
Because isn't that one set in the same universe as the original too?
Yeah.
Okay, because like Ghostbusters 2016 was a remake. It wasn't like part of the franchise, kind of, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't,
Ghostbusters
like,
2016 was a reboot.
Reboot,
like
whatever.
a remake, reboot.
Yeah.
They're starting it over. And it's kind of like, how in Scream they talk about like the sequels and whatever. And like there's certain ways that you do a sequel and versus a reboot. I can totally see that in these movies. I'm just like thinking there's totally an algorithm that they have to make these type of movies, to make a sequel, to make a reboot. And Ghostbusters Afterlife is like the most perfect sequel reboot that they could possibly make. It just follows the little outline they must have in making these movies. It's literally just down to a T what the most basic remake sequel you could possibly come up with.
Okay,
like,
well,
it just follows the algorithm of it so perfectly. You have your main characters who are related in some way, shape, or form to the originals. They find, out about their family's past. That character's dead, though, so they can't talk to them about it. Now they're kind of taking over, and then you have the original characters who make an appearance, help save the day. It's like so basic. It was good, but it was just like not that creative, I would say. Like, I could have come up with the exact same movie just because it follows the typical Hollywood sequel. I'm like, it's the best way I can describe it is Maverick Top Gun,
Top Gun Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick, whatever, which is an amazing sequel. And when it came out, I'm like, this is like the best sequel I have ever seen, ever made. Years later, done beautifully, loved the storyline.
Which a lot of people agree with that. A lot of people thought that one was even almost better than the first one because of how good they did it.
Now, I wouldn't say Ghostbusters Afterlife was on the same level as how good it was. But I think part of that was that I'm like, I've seen this storyline done before in a different movie format. Like, to me, it was I literally thought, oh, I feel like I'm watching Top Gun Maverick. But in like a different format. You know what I mean? It's like, because the storyline, it's been done before. I'm like, I think it's still a beautiful job. They really honored, in the first movie, the main geeky scientist, Spengler, he died back in 2014. And this movie was kind of like an honor to him.
I know, that's why, like, not every movie needs to have a remake or a reboot. Like, I get it. If they're big and they're popular, you're going to want to make more of them to make more money. But unless you do it right and you do it well, you're almost kicking yourself in the leg. Because, like, you're kind of like tainting part of the
Yeah.
legacy of it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I still think it was a fine movie.
Yeah, no,
but
I mean, it got good reviews, but I'm just saying, like, in
it
general,
was good. It just was like,
and I think lately, the last few years, we've had a lot of reboots and remakes of classic original ones. Like, I mean, Top Gun Maverick was really good. That one kind of is separate because that one was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm like, this was like the best sequel. I remember saying that. I'm like, this is the best sequel I've ever seen ever made. And on one side, I'm like, I love seeing more content from beloved movies.
Right.
But on the other side, it gets a bit old. And like I was saying, like with this one, like it was good, but I'm like, it's been done before. I'm like, can't you come up with something a bit more creative, still honor the original? It did get a couple little giggles out of me. And I did, since I had just watched the original, like, I can see exactly what nods they're making to the original. I
thought that they had to be, like, a younger cast, like, have the younger kids in there. That was, like, that would make it good.
It was kind of fun. And, like, in the original movie, at the end, they fight the Pillsbury Doughboy. I can never say that, yeah. They fight him, he's giant, he blows up and, like, gets goo all over the city, you know?
Yeah, I remember that. Well, I mean, they did that in...
Yeah, they had, like, a nod to that. In the 2016 version. And then in this version, Paul Rudd's character is walking through the grocery store and he's going down the marshmallow aisle and you get all these tiny little ones and they start attacking him, and later on one of the little kids zaps a ton of them and he gets covered in goo. Clear nod to the original. I do love seeing stuff like that.
I do think it's
and I thought that was a really clever way to do it, because I'm like, we've seen the big monster done before.
Yeah, not the exact same way, but like throwing some stuff in there.
Yeah, so that was cute. I'm like, that's great. They had a couple little creative things like that I really appreciated, but then overall I'm like, I wish they would have done more with the storyline. I just am like, I'm tired of seeing this Bowser character and the weird dog beasts, because they were weird the first time.
Because like even in the 2016 version, they kind of did the same ghost stuff, you think about it.
In a way, but different.
They had some more like... They did the classic, like, green, gooey things, you know, like...
Yeah, I mean, and they had a nod to the weird blob dudes.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the Pillsbury Dough giant thing.
Well, and you see them fight all these, like, pilgrim ghosts.
Yeah. And they fight a giant dragon-y thing at the theater that one time, too.
Yeah, like, you get a lot more different ghosts in that one. You actually get to see them full-on fight a whole little horde of ghosts during the end battle.
Little, montage at the end where she's like fleeing them and like lots of them.
Yeah, with her two.
It's pretty cool.
Like way more fun. Obviously, the original didn't have nearly probably the budget, the technology, any of that to do that skill. So I understand why they didn't have as much. And then this 2016 version, I'm like, great, all around great, obviously. But then the Afterlife version, I'm like, we don't get to see more ghosts. I get it's kids. I thought the adults were gonna fight a bit more with them, and they didn't. Paul Rudd and their mom gets possessed by the weird dogs. Mm. And so then it's like the kids, which I'm like, okay, go kids, how fun. But the kids chase the same ghost the entire movie until the end. It's like this weird metal-eating ghost. They keep, like, there's like this really long scene of them trying to catch him. They finally catch him and then they let him out later. And then there's the end. I was just, a little underwhelmed. And then at the end, they're trying to fight the demon, but it's not working.
Did they set up for another one?
I don't know. I guess they could. But yeah, so at the end, that's when the original 3 Ghostbusters show up to help save the day. And then they did have the Spangler. He showed up in ghost form to help his granddaughter fight the demon. And so he shows up, and it was a touching moment. I did cry. Okay, I'm a softie. I did tear up a little bit because I'm like... Oh, he's there in ghost forms. His Ghostbuster buddies are like looking at him all sad. They get to say, hey, we miss you. We're sorry we didn't reach out. We're sorry we didn't believe you. Kind of sweet because he actually he wasn't really in the movie. They were able to just do that with technology because obviously he passed away. Anyways, I liked that one the most out of all the ones that are in the original, I guess. But the other ones... The second Ghostbusters, we don't even need to talk about it. But yeah, 2016 version will always and forever be the best one. And I mean, they did it right. They honored the first one.
Yeah, they had some
They mimicked some of the first one. They obviously were like portraying characteristics of the original characters, but they did it more fun. They each had more personality. I just felt like in the first one, you really just saw Bill Murray the most, and like the other two scientists.
The difference between old movies and now is that now I feel like they do tend to try to give characters more depth.
Yeah.
Because, like, they want them to be a little more complex. Before, honestly, if you watch a lot of old movies, their characters have, like, no personality generally.
Yeah.
They're generally, like, very, very, very basic.
Yeah. In the first one, honestly, the characters are not all that notable to me.
I mean, obviously, evolution, too, with technology and stuff, they've been able to make things more complex. But, like, writing has changed a lot, where they have, like, more complex characters, more complex background, emotional depth, things like that, because then it makes it more fun for audiences to, like, buy into it and, like, get involved.
I mean, it was like watching a one-dimensional movie versus watching like a four-dimensional movie. Like,
exactly.
It's kind of like there's just way more layers to it.
Like, it leaves you, like, it doesn't leave you feeling, like, unfulfilled in the fact that you got to know the character. Because I feel like a lot of times I'll watch an old movie, and I'm like, I have to watch it, like, 12 times in order to feel like I even know the character, and that's the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Because, like, I understand, like, if we were to watch the 2016 version again, like, right now, I'd be like, yeah, even though I've seen it a ton of times, but if I would just watch it, like, one or two times, I'd be like, yeah, I get the characters, because they give you, like, enough of it, like, Abby just really, really wants to be, she doesn't really want the fame from it, she just wants to be able to study the science.
Yeah.
And she really enjoys the science, and she loves that, and she felt very connected to it from a very young age, and so she found that love of it with Erin. Erin, in the beginning, really wanted to just be successful and have, you know, her community of professors and all that stuff, but then she changes and she reverts. She remembers how much fun it is with doing stuff with Abby and how they connected over it because she saw ghosts when she was young and all that stuff.
Yeah, and she slowly, throughout the movie, you see her she progresses from being someone who only cares about what other people think, what society thinks of her,
to just enjoying the work and just
to enjoying the work. And at the end of the day, she's just like, she kind of grows to accept that people aren't going to like fully believe them, fully respect them.
And and I feel like,
and she learns
Abby,
to live with that.
Like Erin gets more relaxed, Abby gets a little bit more serious because they reconnect. I don't know. I just feel like you get that from a lot more movies now. You get the depth. You can see it more.
That is something I really love, especially about this movie, is how like close they all get. I love the found family. I love seeing, like, good friendship bonds and everything. And I think that's part of why it makes it so fun. Because, like you said, the actors themselves really play off of each other well. So, like, the chemistry on screen and, like, how, like, close they all get, their energy, it's just so fun.
Well, and, like, you don't always get that from... I mean, like, you can have a really good movie. The actors have great chemistry. But it's not quite the same, I feel like, especially in a comedy sense. Because if you're trying to have a comedy movie, you really need to have actors that can feed off each other. Because if you don't get the timing right, it doesn't hit. But if you're trying to do a comedy and you're trying to hit those specific beats in a conversation on screen, it works so much better if you're familiar with them. That's why I feel like, seriously, these women on screen, because they've done so much stuff on SNL together, they know where they're going to go.
Right.
Even
and
if it's not
they know
totally
how
scripted.
To, like, play.
Yeah, and if I'm going to say this, and I do this with my body and do this with my face or whatever, one of them's going to pick up on it and say something funny and make it keep going. And so
I think that's part of why it's so funny, because the jokes never miss. Like, I never feel like I'm like, oh, that, like, just didn't quite hit.
It, like, fell flat. Like, no. I feel like they did that smart in this movie. They cast it very well when it comes to making a comedy.
Oh, yeah. Perfect comedy. All around. So funny. Go watch
humor
it.
Just hits.
2016 version is superior.
Yes. I think they get it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, respect the originals, but respect that...
I'm going to stop Allie right here, because she's just going to keep going if I don't stop her. Thanks for watching. Thanks for enjoying this week's episode on Ghostbusters, because
thanks for enjoying. What if they didn't enjoy it?
Well, thanks for sticking through to the end if you're still here. Come back next week, because we are kicking off our Harry Potter series, and I could not be more excited than I am.
I'm pretty excited too.
So, yeah. We will be diving into the world of Harry Potter. We're going to be talking about comparisons between the books and the movies, our opinions on some things. We're going to talk about the new series supposedly coming out, what we think about that, everything that has to do with it. Well, we're just going to stick with the main Harry Potter books, I should say. So you'll just come back and you'll just see what we have in store for you guys. So
that will be the
last
end of October.
Spooky season.
And then we just kick off both Harry Potter series and all the holiday stuff, which I'm so freaking excited.
We're so excited. Oh yeah, and we are on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you can listen. Everything's just pretty much at Theater Therapy.
So yeah, until next time.